It's a big purchase, it's a big commitment, and I was not about to save a few thousand rands and end up paying more than 200,000 or 100,000 to fix something that we are already tied to and have no choice in. Hi team, welcome back to another video and thank you so much for joining me. If it is your first time here, andiswa.mojapelo, and on this channel I chat about all things related to managing your money and adulting in general. So if that's your type of content, please make sure that you smash that red subscribe button and that you give the video a huge thumbs up if you end up enjoying it. So guys, as you may know, we are on a buying property or becoming a homeowner series, and this is episode 4 if I'm not mistaken, where we're talking all things becoming a homeowner and buying property. Now, when I went through the experience that I'm going to talk about today, it was a no-brainer to me that I had to come back and tell you guys all about it. I want to give you the tea and tell you what it was about, why we decided to go through this route, what did the process entail, what were the pros and cons, and most importantly, what was the cost of this process, right? And going through this. So let's kickstart the video and start with the why. So while I was doing my research on buying property, one of the things that I really wanted to get right was making sure that I don't purchase a property, or that we don't purchase a property that has huge defects or issues that are going to cost a lot of money. It's fine if we do that and we are aware of what those issues are, but if we're not, then we're not going to be able to plan and most importantly save accordingly. So the reason behind this is I was doing my research and I found out that I was basically Googling like what are some of the things that you need to take into consideration when you are viewing a property, like from the walls to the ceilings to the cracks, to the watermarks and all of those things. What are some of the things that you need to be looking out for, right? That's what I was searching for. And then while I was doing my search, one of the things that I found most common that people were talking about was the fact that you needed to consult someone that you know in your circle who is familiar with buying property, and then ask that person to guide you in terms of some of the things that you should look out for. And then once you found a property, one of the things that you can do is take that person along to the viewing and make sure that they view the property as well and that they are happy with it, or they help you ask the right questions. Now, problem number 1, not all of us have someone in our circle who's bought many properties and who's acquired that type of experience. Not all of us know someone who's into construction, property development, and all of those things. So it was not easy for us to find someone who could tag along to every viewing, who could tag along and give us the context that we needed. Yes, we had friends that we could ask, questions, which we did. Thank you, friends, which we did ask questions here and there. But then again, people are busy and they've got things to do. So then we were like, okay, cool. So that's not an option that we can use easily. What else can we do? And then I started to do more research in terms of acquiring the knowledge myself, where I could look at certain things and look out for certain things that are common. But then I found myself digging myself into a rabbit hole of stuff that I don't understand and that I don't necessarily have the time to understand either. So I was like, okay, we need another option. Now, while I was doing this research, one of the things that I found out about were certified home inspectors. And I was like, okay, this is new to me. Normally, I know that home inspectors would view a property for valuation purposes. Like when you want your property to be, valued and you want to know what it's going for, what the going rate is, you'd ask someone to come in and have a look. But this one was very different. It was called a pre-purchase home inspection. And now that we know the why we did it, it's because we obviously wanted help in making this decision, and we wanted someone who's certified, who's adhering to certain standards, to help us ask the right questions and point out things that we wouldn't otherwise see because of lack of experience and also lack of knowledge, right? That's why we did it. And then in terms of stumbling on this home inspector, so I then found out information about pre-purchase home inspection, and then I started researching more and more, and I found out that there were this group of people who were certified by a specific international body, and they could go into a home prior to you purchasing it, and they could have a look at it physically with their team and determine if there are any critical issues, whether they are critical actually or even minor, that you need to look out for before you purchase the property. And they do this at a cost. And at a cost that obviously you have to carry as the buyer, because you are the one who wants to know what's happening with the property. So I thought, okay, this is really cool, but it sounds expensive and all of that stuff. But let me see how it goes. Now, obviously, if I'm doing this video, you guys know already that I've already gone through the process, and I thought it was a good idea to give it a go. Okay, cool. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to jump on this. It seems like a great idea. So what is the process like? What the process is like is you obviously choose your, you do your research and you choose your designated home inspector. There are many to choose from. One of the things that I use to make my decision is reviews. I love using reviews to make a decision, and also the costs, right? This one was way more affordable than the others that I had found. So those were honestly, and plus they were part of the body that regulates that space, which is also something very important to me. So in terms of the process, you obviously search for your service provider. You found someone that you're comfortable with, and then you start doing a couple of quotes as well. And then after you do the quotes, you then accept it. What happens is you then decide on a date with the home inspector that you're comfortable with. And obviously the seller is also involved because it's still their home that you are going into. So they also need to be part of that process, because you would be visiting them in their home, especially if they are still living there, like our case. Okay, we chose our service provider. We were very happy with the guy, and we're happy with the quotes that I'll discuss later. And then after that, we contacted the seller and we said, look, we would like to do a pre-purchase home inspection at our cost as part of, the process of buying this property that we are interested in. So very, very, very NB and important, and something that I picked up while I was doing my research. It's important that if you are doing the home inspection after you've made the offer to purchase, which is ideal, because you don't want to do a home inspection and pay thousands of rands for 10 properties just because you're interested in them, and then end up going with one, because all of that money, would have been wasted and gone down the drain. But obviously our budgets are different, so you might afford to do that. But for us, we really wanted to use this service on something that we were serious, about. So contacted the seller, and one of the things that I wanted to mention that was NB, going back to that point, is that you need to make sure that if you are going to do a home inspection and you want the results and the report of that home inspection to help you with your offer to purchase, you need to put this as a clause in the OTP, right? So what we did is that in the OTP, as part of the additional stuff that we could add, we said that we are going to do a home inspection, a pre-purchase home inspection by a certified inspector. And this OTP that we are, doing is subject to the fact that we get a favorable home inspection report. And what that means is that in the OTP, obviously the sellers have communicated all of the things that they believe are wrong with the property, or all the issues and defects that are present that they are aware of. And we are saying that if there are others and they are substantial to the point where the inspector comes and says that this is an unfavorable home and the living conditions are dangerous and all of those things, then obviously we are not going to go ahead with the OTP, and this clause must then allow us to pull out of that agreement. Obviously, if the sellers are confident that they are selling a good property and that they've disclosed everything that they need to, particularly the big issues, then there shouldn't be a reason why they would say, no, we don't want that, you need to take the property and all of those things. So our sellers said, fine, come with your home inspector and do the home inspection, because we're comfortable that there isn't anything, particularly wrong with the property that we haven't already disclosed. Okay, that was a tick. So you make sure that you mention it in the OTP. That's part of the process. The second thing is that obviously now that it's part of the OTP, once the OTP has been accepted, that's another very important point, is that the home inspector doesn't come, just because you made the offer to purchase. It's when the sellers actually accept the offer that now it's going to become your property, that you say, okay, let me bring my home inspector in and let them check out the place and make sure that what I believe I am buying is what I'm actually buying, and it's not like a health hazard or something like that, or a danger zone. These things actually happen, guys. It might sound like, a bit extra to go this route, but I really thought that it was worth it. It's a big purchase, it's a big commitment, and I was not about to save a few thousand rands and, end up paying more than 200,000 or 100,000 to fix something that we are already tied to and have no choice in. So once that's done, we set up a date. And then the home inspector visits the home. They ideally, wanted us to be part of the process. That is what is ideal, that the buyer and the seller are there and that there's one conversation that is had whenever these things are identified. And that's exactly what happened in our situation. We were there, the sellers were there, and the home inspector arrived on time. His service was really great. He went around the whole property, and he went onto the roof. He looked at all of the tiles, he looked at the cracks outside the garden, the gutters, the ceiling, the tiles, the geysers. He went inside the roof to look at where the geyser was, and if the geyser was like rusty or if there was water or leakages. He went under the sinks. I can't mention all of the things that he did and the places that he went to. But you can read that in your research when you choose your provider. So those are all of the things that he does on the day. And what was really cool is that because we were all present, he would look at specific things like cracks on the wall or something that has moved or shifted, or a tile that has shifted, and he'd be like, okay, I see something moved there. What was that about? I see a leak there. Where is that coming from? And obviously he wants the response of the seller and for you to hear it, but he's also in the report going to mention this, and tell you this. And then at the end of the day, the home inspector leaves, and then he took 24 hours. I believe it would be different for different providers, but he took 24 hours to give us what is called a pre-purchase home inspection report. Most of the people that are certified as part of that body will have a standard checklist that they use in terms of the different rooms that they go into and exactly what they check. So this home inspection report is quite extensive, but it also comes with a summary of all the things that you need to look out for. And then with the summary, it tells you that we found A, B, C, D, and these are some of the things that you would need to fix. An example is like some of the things that were raised in the summary for our place is that there's a wall that had shifted outside, and he thought that it came from a specific tree and all of those things. And then he also, which is a really great value add, estimates how much it's going to cost you in order to fix that. And this is very important because if it's something that's going to cost you a lot of money, you can then use that as bargaining power against the seller and say that, look, you did not disclose that this thing is going to cost, you did not disclose that this thing is broken or it's faulty, and the cost of replacing this is going to be plus minus 60,000 rand. So are you going to fix it, or are you going to bring down the price so that there's a bit of money left and room for us as the sellers to fix it? Something similar happened in our case where the home inspector came with a couple of things and said, guys, you need to watch out for ABC. Our report was still favorable, but those things really helped because we went back to the sellers and we said, look, we are interested in buying this property, but we would really appreciate it if you could look at this that came from the home inspector, and also look at fixing some of these things so that the place can be as is, or rather as what we know it to be when you explain, because these are not some of the things that came out. And fortunately, our sellers were very willing to fix the things that came out in the home inspection. So there wasn't tug of war or change of price. It was just, okay, it's noted. We see that a certified person identified all these issues and we are going to work on them. And then they fixed like all of the things that we had an issue with, and we didn't have a problem there. We would have spent a lot of money had we not gone through the process, looking at those things ourselves, or rather having them unravel themselves as we live in the property. So I'm really, really glad that we went through the process. We got a professional to look at the place. And another thing, guys, that I really want to share is our home inspector actually told us that he once went to a place. This couple was going to buy an apartment in a complex, And then when he was doing his home inspection, he actually noticed while he was on their roof that their roof and the other roofs had huge damage and issues on it, right? And he could see that this needed to be fixed ASAP. And he asked, the buyers if they had been told of a special levy that's coming to fix this. And then they said no, they hadn't been told of any special levy that's going to come to fix this. They're not aware of it. And he said, you know what, I am almost sure that in less than a year of you moving in, if you're going to do this quickly, there's going to be a special levy to redo all of these roofs, and it's going to cost lots of money. And then he estimated obviously for them how much this would cost, and it was quite a significant percentage of the selling price. And then they spoke to the people around, other people that they knew around the complex and stuff like that. And they said, yes, we had been talking about this as the body corporate, that we need to, put money into this and raise a special levy because it is indeed something that needs to be fixed as soon as possible. That's just an example of the kind of things that you can look at avoiding when you go through the route of a home inspector. Now, again, one might think that instead of spending money on this, you'd rather do it yourself or get someone that you know to do it for you, which is perfectly fine. But like I explained in the beginning, that's not an avenue that we had at our disposal. So so this was much better for us. But I think I've already mentioned some of the pros of why going through this process, or rather why we feel that going through the process was really beneficial. In terms of the cons, honestly, it is the chance that you could lose out. It is the chance that you could lose out on what you have spent on the property inspection. Should you decide not to go ahead with the property, then obviously it would mean that if you are able to use that to get out of the OTP, it would mean that you've lost out in that way. So I think that's really the biggest issue with that part. But I feel like the opportunity cost is far too high, and I would rather spend that money and know that I'm safe and I'm in a place that is what it says it is, and it's not something else that's going to creep up later on. I prefer my costs to be upfront. I prefer to know what I'm dealing with and then plan accordingly, rather than have things pop up out of the blue. So that's why I felt that the whole process was really, really beneficial. Now for the last part, how much did it cost? So in terms of the cost, guys, when I first started doing my research with other service providers, I almost fell off my chair because they were quoting like 6,000-7,000 rand. An important thing about the cost is that the cost does depend on the size of the property, and it also depends on how many bedrooms do you have, how many bathrooms do you have, and how many geysers does the house have, and all of those things. Does it have a garden or not? Is it upstairs, downstairs? Because all of those things are factored into the extent that they would have to go through in order to make sure that you have a really good comprehensive home inspection report. So those things do matter. So when I first started doing quotes, I saw quotes for like 7,000 rand and 8,000 rand, and I was like, yo, this thing is expensive. I know that you could spend much more if something is wrong, but yo, that's like quite steep. So I continued doing my research, trying to find smaller companies and smaller service providers, and eventually I found one that was 2,800 rand for the type of property that we have. If you watch the very first episode, then you'd know the type of property that we have already, so I'm not going to go through that, but it costs 2,800 rand, and you pay a deposit. I actually forgot how much the deposit was, but what I know is it's much less than 50%, I think, and then the bigger amount you pay on, I stand to be corrected about that, but the bigger amount you actually pay before you get the report. So you pay an initial deposit, he comes and he inspects the house, and then after that, in order to get the report, you then pay the amount in full, and that's when you would receive your report. And obviously once you've received your report, the inspector does say, you're welcome to ask any questions, and also you are welcome to share the report with the sellers so that they don't think that you are asking for unreasonable things that don't make sense, that you thumb sucked, that they see that a professional did identify these things. And in any case, in our case, these things were already raised on the day that the inspection was done anyway. So guys, again, I think that was 2,800 that was well spent, and I would definitely do it again, because the cost of the things that had to be fixed by the sellers was far more than the amount of money that we actually spent on getting a pre-purchase home inspection. And for us, it was not a waste because we ended up buying the property that we were doing the home inspection for. So yeah, man, even if you don't end up buying the property, then you're probably avoiding a lot, which is pretty cool as well. Before I close this video, please note that when you do go through this process, you need to do your own amount of extensive research before you choose a provider and before you commit to something like this. And also, you know, don't forget the OTP part, rewind to it and pay it again if you are not sure. And lastly, remember that the home inspector does not tell you if you should buy the property or not. They just tell you these are the issues and these are the things that you need to look out for in this property so that you can make an informed decision in terms of how you continue from there. I really hope that you found this insightful and useful, especially if you are looking for property at the moment. If you did, don't forget to give the video a huge thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, team.